in any case, I'm not here, to consult on your industry, which I don't know much about. Jonathan asked me to talk about art. Who's wondering why we're talking about art in a business class? Okay. Great. I will first talk about art and science and technology. The times that we grew up, we are in our educational systems, we all have these majors, and some of them can be really specialized. And in workplaces, we have our functions. I know some of you are in operations, in sales, or editorial. And I don't know about you, how I grew up, I always saw art and science, they are separate cultures. Is that your... But it didn't used to be this way. We all know who this is. So was Leonardo da Vinci an artist or a scientist? Both. Yeah, he's the consummate polymath. And he's not the only one in history. So this was the Song dynasty, probably not known to the Western world much, but the Song dynasty was pretty much on par with like the ancient Athens, the Renaissance, the 1900 Vienna as one of the creative epochs. And so 3 out of the 4 ancient Chinese inventions were during this period. There's the compass, gunpowder, and you guys are publishers. The printing technique was invented in China back in that period. Shen Kuo was a scientist at the time, and he pretty much was the China's Leonardo da Vinci. And scientist really doesn't quite characterize him. He was a mathematician, astronomer, pharmacologist, cartographer, diplomat, hydraulic engineer, inventor, university chancellor, and finance minister. And in his spare time, he wrote poetry and composed music. Su Rongpo was a famous poet and painter, also a statesman, a governor. He was also a polymath, another Chinese Da Vinci. And these are some of the other geniuses you guys are probably more familiar with. We have Sigmund Freud, who was very into archaeology. Ernest Mach, who was a physicist and also a serious philosopher. Of course, we have Einstein, played music all his life. My discovery was the result of musical perception. And this is how he sees art and science. After a certain level of technical skills is achieved, science and art tend to coalesce in aesthetics, plasticity, and form. The greatest scientists are artists as well. And in fact, a recent study found that Nobel laureates are 7 to 22 times more likely to be involved in cross-disciplinary arts than other scientists. And that could include music, drawing, painting, writing, or performing. We didn't grow up that way, right? And why not? Fourth Industrial Revolution, is that a familiar term here? So Second Industrial Revolution was a period about mass production. It was the electricity age and assembly lines. So that called for division of labor, specialization. It was reflected not only in the educational system, which cut kind of knowledge into slices and boxes, but also in the workplace. It favored ultra specialization. So the Renaissance man died. But now as we move into the Fourth Industrial Revolution, it's a fusion of technologies that are blurring the lines not only between digital, physical, and biological spheres, but also the lines between industries. GE now sees them as an industrial internet company. Is Airbnb a travel company, a hospitality company, or a technology company? So times like this, it calls for coalescence. It's better suited, and indeed it's re-emerging. It's emerging in the academics. People know about MIT Media Lab? Yeah, okay. No? Yes? Oh, okay. Joey Ito, who's the director of the lab, he's a leading advocate of interdisciplinary thinking. As we engage in tackling harder and harder problems that require many fields and perspectives, the separation of disciplines is causing more and more damage. it's time for higher mission and changes needed in academic and research to allow more people to work in the wide open white space between disciplines, and he calls the anti-disciplinary space. This is a professor of biomedical engineering at Harvard who founded La Laboratoire, first in Paris and then brought back to Cambridge as well. So this is where artists and designers, they experiment at the frontier of science. Quite often that's the first steps towards larger scale cultural, humanitarian, and commercial works of art and design. In Stanford, where I work, this is the new president, who's a French-Canadian, a neuroscientist, but he has recognized the arts as the presidential priority for the next, at least the next decade. So arts will be at the heart of strategic planning for the future. In research institutions are adopting artist-in-residence programs. This is artist-in-residence program show at SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence in Mountain View. This is Jill Tarter. Anyone seen the movie Contact? So she was the one who inspired the role played by Jodie Foster, a famous scientist at NASA and a huge supporter of art programs. It's not only in the US, in fact, there are probably more in Europe. This is CERN. They have a new arts program. And as the head of that program comments, it's really not just about commenting on scientific facts or illustrating science or communicating advanced technologies. Really, art is providing a framework for discussing the complexities that underlie our contemporary scientific future. So those are kind of space science. We also have neuroscience. This is another big field involving the art. This is the International Arts and Mind Lab at Johns Hopkins Brain Science Institute, a multidisciplinary initiative accelerating what they call the field of neuroaesthetics. So they study the combination of neuroscience and applying in the environment, arts, music, architecture. This is just one example of individuals, artists and scientists collaborating. Cornelia Parker and Konstantin Novoselov, his Nobel winner back in, was it 2010 or if you guys remember, for his work in discovering graphene. And he's a huge art lover. I don't know if that's widely known. He practices Chinese calligraphy and Chinese art. These are all of the science and technology trends transforming the 21st century: robotics, VR, AI, machine learning, synthetic biology, 3D printing, big data, neuroscience, genomics, or the CRISPR, gene editing. It's just mind-boggling what's happening in science and technology. And that's why our environment has become so unpredictable, so volatile, and so complex. So what art does, it conceptualizes, visualizes, synthesizes, of course, it criticizes, and it really can be a partner with science and technology to shape the world together. We can't really just have science and technology. We need art to bring it together and to also make sure that it goes the way that humanity really wants. Just like this poster said, it was back in New York World's Fair in 1939, the world we are now seeing is a vision. It's an artistic conception which may undergo many changes as it develops into great realities of tomorrow. So this is all kind of for the world, it's for the society, but it also applies to individual businesses, to innovation as well. Before I go there, maybe I'll just take a detour, since I came from Silicon Valley, and cast a perspective on the valley as well. We see governments and companies and schools and people come to Silicon Valley all the time to see what's the secret and how do we recreate. The official history has federal government defense investment there, which later became available commercially. You would hear the story of Fairchild, the first wave IC semiconductor, and you will hear the story of Hewlett Packard starting in their garage